took a long pause. What story is he telling? I said, well, I'll tell you the story I'm telling you. I told the story some years ago, and I was deeply involved in the Central American conflicts, the Contra Wars, trying to end them, the wars in El Salvador, and I spent a lot of time working on those issues. And Bush was president at the time, and he was not always happy with it. He was cutting off funding, these various conflicts and the like. So one night, in a peak of frustration, he said to me, I can make one call in Latin America, who should I call? And I said, listen, that's a tough, let me think about it. Off the top of my head, I have a quick answer for you. And so I thought about it, and thought of this guy who was a former president of Uruguay by the name of Sanguinetti, a very well-respected leader in Latin America, a small country, not threatening to many people, but highly regarded for his views and ideas. Anyway, I ran to President Bush several weeks later, and I said, you know, he asked me that question, who could I give you one recommendation you should call? I said, if I could only make one call, that's all I was allowed to make, I'd call Sanguinetti, not a bad guy, to get a good feel about what's going on in the region. End of conversation. About 3 months later, I ran into former President Sanguinetti, and he said to me, you're never going to guess who calls me. Calls me on my birthday, calls his other kids and do it. No, it was George Bush. And he just didn't do it with Sanguinetti. George Bush was very good at this. He would call people all over the world, develop those relationships with them. Not just there was a vote the next day at the UN or the OAS, but when those things occurred, he got to know people. It's labor intensive. It's what you do, in a sense, to make this work right. And I don't want to make it sound simplistic, but sometimes just that personal relationships that develop, you begin to trust someone. It comes down to a 50-50 call here. But because I trust you, and you sound like you're on the track and you're trying to do something, I can go the other way, but you know what? I'll go with you on this one. See how it works. That's what this son has never done. And it's this arrogance about it all, that you're either going to go my way or the highway, in a sense. And you see the hole in Douglas house. And of course, when you consider where we were in the wake of 9/11, with the world anxious to join us and work with us on so many causes, and here we've abandoned all of that over the last number of years. So I don't know if that makes any sense to all of you, but it's so important that it's understood that this is that kind of work. You can't go to bed at 9 o'clock at night as a president expect this to work. It's spending time with people, getting to know them, what their interests are, what they care about. And you discover that they're good people. I gave a commencement address at a high school in Connecticut, and I decided I'd make the commencement address about this point. I wanted them to know this, that I serve with some very good people with whom I disagree profoundly, but they're good people, and they care about our country. And it doesn't do us any good for me to demonize them along the way. It's more important that I find out where we can agree and take my principles if I can and make it policies. And anything short of that, I'm not doing my job. You can't run this country as Dick Cheney wants to, 50% plus one, and ignore and deny 49% of us the opportunity to be part of this. That's not legal. That's divisiveness. That's what we've had too much of. It's got to stop. Yeah.
Official narrative of 9/11 just doesn't add up. Would you support a new investigation that would not blind itself to the possibility that there was control of election?
Well, I'd like to see more evidence that is out there. Supporting a commission on the supposition. I know others have raised this, but I see the kind of. But I would take a substantial evidence to draw a conclusion. I've been involved in a lot of re-investigations. I did all the re-investigations of the King and Kennedy assassinations here, particularly the Kennedy and King, both of those. Spent several years on it here. But I haven't seen enough evidence yet to convince me that I want to finance and support a whole look at what caused 9/11.
It's a great book called New Pearl Harbor by David Ray Griffin.
I'll look at it. I promise I'll do that.
One more question.
Yes, sir. I'll get to you. I'm not going to leave it.
Two quick ones. To me, this election seems to be a vindication of everything that the progressives and Democrats have been fighting for the last 30, 40 years. I mean, it was fairly obvious to a lot of folks a long time ago that we needed national health care, the environment was important, and all this other stuff. Without patting ourselves on the back too much, I think the point should be made nationally. That these have been hard issues, and now's the time for them. And we can comment on that. I think most people think that, let's say 70% of the people plus think that national health care, single payer, is the way to go, even if it costs more money. And yet still there's some, you talk about the people you work with, and they still call it socialized medicine. So, and the second thing, you just tell us, what's with Joe Wheeler?
look, it is that. I mean, putting aside the merits, I've said, look, come a week after the election, November, there are two issues that I will begin immediately to assemble people to start coming up with some answers on how we achieve that universality in healthcare and also energy. I think the importance of demonstrating right off the bat here that you understand that the importance of these two domestic and international issues, health and energy, by the way, international issues, not just domestic issues. Obviously, energy, we understand that. So that we can begin working this. I'm going to have to assemble stakeholders. You and I both know the stakeholders include people who totally disagree with you and I on this issue. But I'm not going to get anything done without their part. They're not just stakeholders. They all have part of the decision-making process. And the reality is we're not going to get to a single-payer system. We may one day get it. But we've got to get to universality. We've got to reduce these costs. We've got to make sure that people don't go bankrupt and crippled in the process here because we haven't gotten it done. And I've learned over the years that I'll take that quarter of a loaf and a half loaf if I can. There was a time in my life where if I didn't get my way, I didn't do anything. And I found it, you know, Tony, there's old Teddy Kennedy. I shouldn't say old, you know, Teddy's pretty young, so anyway. But he's a pretty good legislator. He said, you know what he learned, I want you to learn. He said, when you get a piece of something, grab the piece. And next year you grab a little bit more, maybe. The year after that, maybe a little bit more. It just doesn't happen all at once. Rarely does it happen all at once. So you get what you can to move this forward. And that's realistic, and try to achieve as much as you can, but understand that you're probably not going to get all that you want. And I invite, by the way, anybody to look at our website, first.com, and give you detailed ideas of healthcare and energy policy like one. Boy, with all of the procedures, but have some strong views of what we need to be doing to address it. And on the second question, look, it's you know, Joe and I have known each other a long time, 40 years. Joe is very progressive on healthcare issues, on energy, environmental questions, on women's rights, and so the Iraq War has just been a decision he went off in a totally different direction for his own reasons. And of course, it was the very awkward situation a year or so ago when I nominated Joe in Connecticut. It was difficult because I had a lot of friends who fundamentally disagreed. He lost the primary, and I supported Ned Lamont. Ned Lamont won the primary. And Joe had a hard time accepting the notion that I couldn't stand with it, but obviously couldn't support a process here. It was open and democratic and transparent, where party members in my state had a different conclusion than I had. So we've gotten over it a bit. Joe, as you know, came out in Georgetown and Cambridge, which is a little thing, there are a lot of issues where they disagree. So I'm not quite sure how we arrived at that conclusion, but he did, and that's his business. But it's a little awkward, obviously. We have a state, small state, two senators that have a fundamental disagreement on the Iraq War. It is what it is. I promised you a question.
Yeah, just recently on YouTube, they've opened up this, you can submit questions to the forum in Switzerland next year. I just wonder, do you think that's going to have any impact?
I'm sorry, this opened up a forum?
The economic forum every year in Sweden.
Oh, you mean in Davos?
Yeah.
In Switzerland.
In Switzerland, that's what I'm saying. They just recently opened it up for people to submit videos about their ideas, what the world's to do. Do you think this will have an impact here?
It can. Look, let me look for bloggers. The mainstream media, tell you something. Except for the internet, we have had virtually no coverage of the debate last week on the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act and the retroactive amendment. It was the internet community that basically got the word out. I received 7,000 emails in about 7 hours across the country. I asked those people who sent emails if they would communicate to members of Congress. There were 11,000 people who sent out 500,000 emails, or generated that many through our office to members of Congress. It had a huge effect. Without any question whatsoever, I think the leadership decided to take that bill down rather than spend the days that were going to try and make me stand up and for, Strom Thurmond stood up for 23 hours. I wasn't going to make 23 hours. That was the longest filibuster ever in history. I don't know how long I was going to be able to stand, whether I would come back and help out. But it had an impact, huge impact here. And it depended upon the main